You know, when you walk into a building, have you ever really stopped to think about what makes it work for everyone? It's way more than just adding a ramp. It's this whole invisible network of rules, all designed to ensure dignity and independence. So today, we're going to pull back the curtain and dive deep, using New Jersey's incredibly thorough accessibility code as our map.
So, why the intense focus in a place like New Jersey? Well, it all boils down to this number, 1.8 million. That's the number of people in New Jersey alone who are living with a disability. We're not talking about a small niche group here. This is a huge part of the population. This number, this is the why behind every single rule we're about to unpack.
So here's how we're going to tackle this. We're going to follow the journey a person would take through a building. First, we'll look at the legal reasons these rules even exist. Then, we'll cover everything from parking spots and doors to how you get around in an emergency to the design of a room itself. And finally, we'll answer the big question, what about older buildings?
All right, first things first. We have to understand that these aren't just good ideas or suggestions from a construction guide. These rules are grounded in civil rights law.
And this right here is the critical connection. You've got the New Jersey law against discrimination, which protects civil rights. But that law doesn't get into the nitty-gritty of how wide a door should be. Instead, it points directly to the state's Uniform Construction Code, and specifically the barrier-free subcode as the technical playbook. So if you fail to meet the code, you're not just breaking a building rule, you could be facing a discrimination complaint. It's a really powerful link.
Okay, let's start our journey right at the beginning, the moment you arrive, because true access doesn't start at the front door. It starts out in the parking lot.
And the code is incredibly precise about this. It doesn't just say, hey, put in a few accessible spots. No, it's a clear, scalable formula. As you can see, the number of required spots goes up as the lot gets bigger. And for those really massive lots, the calculation gets even more specific. It's all about making sure access is proportional.
And just having the spots isn't enough. You have to identify them correctly. It's a two-part system. First, you've got the classic R78 sign, the one we all recognize, mounted at a very specific height. But here's the key. New Jersey law requires a second sign, the R78P, right below it. This one isn't just a symbol. It explicitly states the minimum $250 fine for parking there illegally. That gives the rules some real teeth.
All right, we've parked, we're at the door, and this is where the code starts thinking beyond just wheelchairs. This quote from the official standard is all about dexterity. It recognizes that for a lot of people, the challenge isn't mobility, it's having the strength or the fine motor control to turn a traditional round doorknob. This is exactly why you see lever handles almost everywhere in new buildings.
Let's actually put a number on that. For most regular interior doors, the code says the maximum force you should need to push or pull it open is just 5 pounds. Think about that. That's like lifting a small bag of flour. It's designed so that strength is never the barrier to getting through a door.
Now, of course, the code is also realistic. For much heavier doors, like those thick fire-rated doors that are critical for safety, there's an allowance. The force to get that door moving, that initial push, can be up to 15 pounds. So it's the smart balance between accessibility and life safety.
And for any hardware that you have to twist, there's a totally different measurement for torque. The maximum force there is 28 inch-pounds. This level of detail is just incredible, right? It proves that accessible isn't some vague idea. It's a set of hard, measurable standards.
Okay, so we're inside. The path has to be clear, not just for everyday use, but for those critical moments, like a fire alarm going off. How does the code make sure people are safe if they can't just run down the stairs?
Well, the answer is this really important concept called an area of refuge. You can think of it as a designated fire-protected safe room, usually right near a stairwell. It's a place where someone who can't use the stairs can wait safely for first responders to arrive. It's a life-saving acknowledgement that evacuation looks different for different people.
And you guessed it, the code gets very specific on size. It's not a one-size-fits-all approach. Notice how it's calculated based on who might need it. You have 6 square feet for an ambulatory person, but that jumps all the way up to 30 square feet for someone who might be on a stretcher. The code is literally built to accommodate a wide range of human needs.
But what good is a safe space if no one knows you're in it? That's why this next part is absolutely non-negotiable. Every single area of refuge must have a two-way communication system. This gives a person a direct line to emergency personnel so they can say, "I'm here," and get instructions. It is a literal lifeline.
Safety is also about getting alerted to the danger in the first place. For someone with hearing loss, that typical high-pitched squeal of a smoke alarm might not be effective, especially if they're asleep.
So the code points to NFPA 72, which requires alarms that use a special low frequency, 520 Hz, and specifies that it has to be at least 75 decibels at the pillow. It's scientifically designed to wake someone up.
So we've covered getting into the building and how to navigate it safely. Now let's go inside an actual room, say an apartment or an office, and see how the code shapes the usability of the space itself.
Now, this is one of the smartest things in the New Jersey Code, the concept of adaptable design. Instead of making every single apartment have a permanently lowered sink, the code says you have to build kitchens so they can be easily modified. This means a section of the counter can be lowered, the cabinets underneath can pop out to create knee space for a wheelchair, and the wall and floor behind are already finished. It's brilliantly forward-thinking.
The code also sets up what you might call a reach zone. It's a very specific vertical range for common things. Look at light switches and outlets. They have to be somewhere between 15 and 48 inches off the floor. Not too high, not too low. Counters and sinks have their own range. It's all about making sure that the essential controls of a room are within reach for someone whether they're standing or seated.
Okay, all of this makes perfect sense for a brand new building, but what about all the older buildings that are already out there? Do they just get a free pass? Well, not exactly, especially when they're being renovated.
The trigger for all this in a renovation comes down to a key term, the primary function space. This is basically where the main event happens, the retail floor, the exam rooms in a clinic, the dining area of a restaurant. It's not the hallways or the boiler room. If your renovation project touches one of these primary spaces, that sets off a whole chain of accessibility requirements.
And this is the big rule that governs it all. If you renovate a primary function space, you also have to spend money making the path of travel to that space accessible. But how much? The code sets a limit. You have to spend up to 20% of your total project cost on that accessible path. It's a way to guarantee gradual accessibility improvements over time without putting an unfair financial burden on any single project.
So when you step back and look at all these numbers, all these rules and definitions, it leads you to a pretty big question. Is this just a boring technical manual for architects and builders? Or when you remember the why behind it, that 1.8 million people, the need for a safe escape, the simple desire to live independently, you realize it's something so much more. It's a blueprint, a detailed, deliberate blueprint for engineering a world that is truly built for everyone.